my sister, she had a dream that I had a tumor.
Yeah.
She basically called me and said, I had a dream about you last night. You have to
Right.
get this taken care of. Mark Ruffalo had this.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so we watched that video.
Yeah. He actually had a dream.
He had a dream.
Really?
And he went into the studio, where they were shooting his film, and told the doctor, he's like, I think you're gonna say I'm crazy, but I had a dream last night that I have a tumor. And she's like, well, we'll do a scan and just check. And they were like, oh yeah, you have a tumor.
Yeah.
Hello, in this episode you meet Jean Najjar. She has an acoustic neuroma. I resected this 3-centimeter large tumor that was causing hearing loss and balance problems. More importantly, her sister dreamt that she had a tumor. And she links it to Mark Ruffalo, the Incredible Hulk, who also dreamed that he had a tumor. Now, I don't know whether this is important, because the reality is we rely on MRI and other tests for diagnosis and not dreams. However, it does bring up an interesting story. Where do dreams have anything to do with doctors? Okay, good morning. I'm here with Jean Najjar, and she presented with a 3-centimeter acoustic neuroma, a big tumor, a big vestibular schwannoma, and I thought I'd let her tell in her own words, her own story, what happened and how you were diagnosed.
It was the end of 2022 where I picked up the phone and I couldn't hear what someone was saying. I heard sound, but I couldn't make out what they were saying, and I thought there was something wrong with the phone. But then I changed ears. I was like, oh no, there's something wrong with my ear. And that was sort of the beginning of a year of me feeling like I was getting older, because I noticed my balance wasn't quite right, and just my stamina was sort of being diminished, and I really felt old. And then, a whole year later, I still hadn't figured out what was causing the problem with my ear. But I had a couple of incidents of vertigo, which my doctor had me go and get an MRI.
So the MRI showed the tumor, and then what was your reaction, or how did you get the news from?
I went in the afternoon to the emergency room. So we're in central Pennsylvania. It's somewhat rural. It's there's no neurologist at our hospital. But my doctor sent me to the emergency room, and then she called me and told me, there's a tumor. You're going to have to go back to the hospital because you're going to have to see a neurologist. And so it was just really scary, because when you hear tumor, you think cancer, and it just sounds like that's not going to work out well.
Yeah.
And then we started looking around we knew we couldn't do this in State College where we lived, and so we talked to people, different surgeons. My sister, actually, the week that I had the vertigo and we found the tumor, she had a dream that I had a tumor.
Yeah.
And she basically called me and said, you have to go do something about this now. And so
she called
that week, she called me.
Before the MRI?
Yeah.
Really?
Crazy. It was really crazy.
Well, actually, she texted. And
Okay.
she's like, I had a dream about you last night. You have to get this taken care of. And I was kind of I didn't respond right away, because she's my big sister and she's always sort of telling me what to do.
Yeah. It's just leave us alone.
Oh my
What a
God.
pain, that sort of thing. But she was spot on.
Yeah, she was.
Well, and then you you have this tumor.
Oh, so she had a friend who had the same tumor.
Yeah.
And that weekend that we were in Harrisburg, Ray got in touch with them. They called us, and she started telling her story, and it was just, I couldn't listen because she had a terrible recovery.
Well, it was a long recovery. She's had a great outcome, though.
Yeah.
I mean, she is doing wonderfully now. It just took quite a long time, and it was very difficult. She said it was like getting run over by a truck twice.
Well, and she couldn't eat after she had there were a lot of complications, and hearing that just a day after we'd had the diagnosis, I was like, oh my God, I thought this is going to happen to me, sort of thing. So that was really scary.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was just so much uncertainty, That was for me, that was the hardest part, was dealing with all that uncertainty.
Yeah, actually, when I hear that story, it helps me appreciate that you have a large tumor, and it does touch your lower cranial nerves. The lower cranial, they control your eating and swallowing. But it's very unusual mostly maybe because I do a lot of these, very unusual to have a permanent or any kind of injury to those lower cranial nerves, even when the tumors are very large. But it is a risk of large tumor surgery like yours, but not one that I would even really say too much about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
She
I
was
see.
more concerned about, losing taste and swalling and enjoyment of food than losing, having facial
I
paralysis.
said that, Ben. I don't know. Very glad that my face is like,
Yeah.
looks the way it did.
It brings up a good point, though. It is all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
When you know how bad potentially it can go, then it almost makes the facial paralysis seem cosmetic.
Right.
Because the facial paralysis is a Bell's palsy, which actually, unfortunately, a lot of people do. Like Joel Embiid, the basketball player, has. And it's been all over the news.
Right.
And he has Bell's palsy and facial paralysis, but he's still playing basketball.
Yeah.
Right.
So the commentators are like, why does he look like that?
Right.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, and Mark Ruffalo had this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we watched that video.
Yeah. He actually had a dream.
He had a dream.
Really?
And he went into the studio, like where they were shooting his film, and told the doctor, he's like, I think you're gonna say I'm crazy, but I had a dream last night that I have a tumor. And she's like, well, we'll do a scan and just check. And they were like, oh yeah, you have a tumor.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where do dreams have anything to do with doctors? So where this is relevant is that we adopted the rod of Aesclepius as our sign and symbol of medicine. And when we take the Hippocratic Oath as doctors, we swear by different gods. Now, these are all Greek gods that are not as relevant today. However, the Aesclepius was an important healer, and he would carry a rod and serpent had magical powers at that time. But in the temple of Aesclepius, which you can still visit in Greece today, in that temple, there is lots of writings about how dreams were used to heal people in a time when science was not very strong, and many perhaps problems were psychological, and so dreams were used to overcome these psychological battles. So in many ways, dreams are important. But this brings up another interesting thing. The WHO and all of Europe recognize that the symbol for healing is a single rod with a single serpent. That is the rod of Aesclepius. In America, we screwed up. We adopted, by mistake, the Caduceus. The Caduceus has two snakes. Now that symbol is for Hermes, the messenger god, the god of commerce. And so maybe that has some subtle second meaning that in America, medicine is also entwined in some way with commerce, which is not necessarily a great thing.
Right.
But yeah, so then you came in to see me, and then what? How did I?
Well, so about a month after, we saw you, I guess, on the 25th of March.
March 25th.
Yeah.
we
And
just
so, we had talked to a couple other surgeons, and I was really leaning towards Penn because I knew I could stay at my brother's. There were a lot of reasons personally that I felt like this would be a good place for us to be.
And I had done some research. And it was pretty clear that you have a lot of experience with these tumors.
Yeah, Ray was really doing all the hard work as far as researching everything.
Internet research.
Mine
right.
was more intuitive, but when we left your office, we just felt so relieved because we were like, yes, we're going to have you do this because you just seem to have the most experience,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate. I've been here in Philly now 18 years, and so working with my ENT colleagues, Dr. Bigelow, Dr. Rugstein, Dr. Brandt, Dr. Hua, I have great teammates, and they bring a lot of patients in. And
everybody was so nice to us at the hospital, like up and down the
the
chain of command.
whole
It was
medical
like
staff was
we just
really
felt like
amazing.
they were taking care of us.
Yeah,
Really.
and
Yeah, it was amazing.
yeah, that's really wonderful. I think Penn's doing a great job also in encouraging. I think they even hire consultants like from Disney. Bring them in and say, how can we make the patient experience better? No, serious. It is
The
remarkable.
space is really great, and it was so different than our local hospial. It was a great experience.
And then you told me that the hardest part of the surgery was the MRI afterwards.
Yeah, because I'm sure it was hard for my family because they didn't know what was going on and it's a long day. But afterwards, having to get the MRI, so soon after the surgery, I was, Yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, that post-op day one, we like to get that because that gives us a really good sense of did we get everything out that we wanted to get out. Because if you
Right.
wait too long, then but yeah, it's tough because they're loud and those
Right.
MRIs are pressure,
Yeah, and your head is sort of still
Yeah.
like, and you're on this cushion, and
And then your recovery since then? Did you go home?
we went home. It was
a
a
Tuesday that we left, and the surgery was on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
15th.
So yeah, I
Right.
had a blood clot, and I had a history of blood clots, so I knew what it was. And we went to our local hospital, and like it turns out, it wasn't a big issue,
Right.
but they didn't really know, and so we
Right.
ended up. I got to ride in a helicopter.
I remember you came in and they
Friday.
called me about your blood clot.
Yeah.
And I said,
I think
oh,
we
you're
were-
already so far out from surgery, no problem with the blood thinner.
Our hospital was so overcrowded that night, though. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Oh my
was
gosh.
they
A lot
couldn't
for some
handle
reason.
us really,
Yeah.
and I think they were just glad to get rid of us.
Yeah.
You know, so.
That was pretty exciting
Yeah.
and kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Right, terrifying for my family.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because you're not allowed to go with her on the
No.
no,
helicopter.
Yeah,
and,
we
and
were
all you know
flying
is she's
under.
being
Oh my
airlifted.
Yeah.
It must be serious. They're
Oh
taking
my
her in a
gosh.
helicopter.
Oh my
Driving
goodness.
under her, yeah.
I think we have too much technology sometimes.
Yeah.
And then how many weeks are you now from surgery?
So it was April 17th, so it's a little bit over a month, and I walked to work this week, so that's a 2.5 mile walk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So-
great for your health, though.
Yeah, no,
There's
it is
nothing
really good.
better than walking to work.
So, well, I was going to say, when we had the PT folks coming to our home, like they asked me, what's your goal? And I said, like, I'd like to be able to walk around the block by myself because people have been following me to make sure I wouldn't fall. And so that was just a month ago, and now I'm, walking to work by myself. So
Yeah.
it's,
10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
You're good.
great.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about chestnuts because, and I'm going to bring out your gift because I love it. Actually, here's the card, the Pac-Man card.
Yeah.
I can't. It's like a personalized card. It's so cool.
My friend, I helped with this. In the hospital, I was like, these guys are great. I have to make them a card. And I was like, it's like that Pac-Man game. And they went in, they took the tumor out. And so you can't see it, but this is the logo for Penn.
Yeah,
and I said,
I
if you
see.
turn it on its side, it's like
How'd you make
Pac-Man.
it?
Yeah.
I don't even know. It was like partly on the computer, and then I stole the Pac-Man image.
Okay.
And I have a friend who's has printer connections, so he printed it,
graphic
but I think
artist.
he shrunk it down to make the Penn logo look a little cleaner. I think.
Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, so that's the tumor.
Okay.
And this is you, and that's Dr. Bigelow.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love it. And then we get to the chestnuts.
So I work for the American Chestnut Foundation, and so it's a national organization. There's 17 chapters, and I'm an administrator
Okay.
at Penn State for the Pennsylvania, New Jersey chapter, and so we're trying to restore the American chestnut to the forest, to the wilds of eastern Pennsylvania. So
Yeah.
they were native all along the Appalachians. And made up about a quarter of the forest in some places up until the turn of the last century. So, yeah.
Yeah, so chestnuts are among my favorite snacks, and always in the wintertime. And I still remember my father, he came from Korea, and so chestnuts were something that they used to warm up their hands because it's so cold. And, it was a
Okay.
very poor country at the time.
They would.
They would roast them, and then they would just keep them in the pocket because
The roasted nuts.
wow.
They would.
Yeah,
keep in
because
their
it would
pockets.
hold
I never
hold
knew
on to
that.
heat. Yeah.
Right.
And so,
Wow.
even as a child, my dad would come home and we would roast the chestnuts, and then it was so fun to peel and eat them. But then you get really dry mouth, so then you have to.
Right.
Right.
So now I'm growing up, and then I learn about. Oh, then I went to college in New Haven at Yale, and there was Chestnut Streets. And then I came to Philly, and there's Chestnut Streets.
Right.
And then you start to read about the American chestnut and this horrible blight and the complete devastation and loss of species.
The organization I work for has been around for about 30 or 40 years, but there was actually a Pennsylvania commission on the chestnut, in the 20s, because it was devastating to the farmers. because it was a money crop and also like a food crop, and it was something, you know, you might raise your pigs on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Trying to reestablish the American chestnut is going to be a challenge. I've read a little bit about the genetic attempts and
we're a member-based organization, so we actually have members like volunteers, mostly older gentlemen who own land, and they're growing chestnuts, and so sometimes it's the
Yeah.
wild chestnut so that we can maintain those genetics.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're growing hybrids like that have been crossed with Chinese chestnuts and Japanese chestnuts and
Oh.
European chestnuts to sort of get something that might be resistant. And then there's also transgenic work being done. And
right.
so
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know all this. And then my wife, every late fall, I think, is that when they?
Yeah.
Yeah, she will order chestnuts from California and then
Oh,
have them
interesting.
delivered.
Wow,
I don't
okay.
know.
So I
Yeah.
wonder where those.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of chestnuts those are.
Maroni?
Maroni.
Does that sound
so
right?
like so a
Italian?
European
Yeah.
chestnut,
The
maybe.
European, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
big.
Right,
And
right.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah, people often. So the American chestnut is actually there's multiple nuts inside the burr, so they're actually like a smaller nut.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the ones from China and the European nuts are probably a cultivar of the Chinese, and so
Oh.
they were cultivated over 1,000 years probably
Really?
to make a
Okay.
good big
Huh.
fat meaty
Yeah,
eating
yeah.
nut.
Okay.
So those are the ones you see in the
Oh.
supermarket.
Yeah.
Well, this is great.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Like when I got the box of the chestnut or the
Yeah.
shirts, and so thank you so much, and
Yeah.
thanks
Oh,
for
you're
putting your
welcome.
trust in,
Thank
in
you.
us. Yeah.
I mean, it was Dr. Lee's enthusiasm for the American chestnut was the real reason you chose him
No,
as a
that's- It helped, but that wasn't the whole reason. No,
Yeah.
you're-
Well, I think it's the combination.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I look forward to keeping an eye on you, following you, and we'll go from there.
Great. Well,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh,
Thank
of
you.
course. Oh, this is great.
Now, if you need another reference to a tutorial video where I describe the difference between retrosigmoid, translabyrinthine, and middle fossa surgery, link here. And if you want to hear another story of a patient who has an acoustic neuroma, a giant acoustic neuroma, and whether she needs a VP shunt or not, link here.